Hi, Dave Wright here again from the Golden Burro Cafe and Lounge with another episode of True Tales from the Golden Burro. This week, by the way, for those of you who love our food, we've got a great tamales special going on. Veggie or beef tamales, take your pick, 3 of any kind, with some of our refritos and Spanish rice. Come on in, $9.95. Great deal. This week's episode, we're featuring 3 things. First, as you recall, last episode we featured a letter from a lady in Chicago who had written to the Leadville newspaper wanting to relocate here, and she had some questions about Leadville and all of that. And this week we're featuring the newspaper's reply to her, and you're going to enjoy that one. Secondly, when we ran the photo of the snow sculpturing contest down Harrison Avenue back in 1960, we had a bunch of emails, and by the way, thank you for the emails. We had a bunch of folks say, hey, what else was Leadville doing back in the 1950s, 1960s, back in that area to help promote the history and the heritage of Leadville? So we're going to feature some of those events that you may have long since forgotten or not been aware of if you haven't been here in Leadville very long. And third, we're going to feature what Leadville is doing today to continue to promote and preserve our amazing history and the legacy and the contribution that Leadville has made to Americans' early West development. Leadville is not just a George Washington slept here city. We really do have an amazing history. Folks that can tag their name to Leadville like Oscar Wilde, the Guggenheims, David May, who founded the May D&F Company, and of course Macy's Foley's. We had Doc Holliday, Jesse and Frank James were here. Of course, the unsinkable Molly Brown and her husband made their fortune here in Leadville. The list is endless. So Leadville really does have an amazing history and legacy that we want to protect and preserve. Since the Golden Burro was opened about 80 years ago, we figured, well, let's go back about 80 years and kind of try and identify a starting point from there of what Leadvilleites have done to protect the history and the legacy of Leadville in relationship to American history. One of Leadville's special key events, known today as Boom Days, was actually formed in 1940 and was called Tabor Days after Leadville's first mayor. Not only did this event aggressively support the local businesses, but in addition to hosting some just for fun events like a soapbox derby, softball tournament, and even several dances and parades, Leadvilleites knew even back then it was Leadville's history that needed to be preserved. And so events such as a timbering contest and a hard rock mining drilling contest were among the key events. Later, pack burro races were incorporated into the event to celebrate Leadville's mining history. Leadville's gunslingers gang, known as the Raiders, organized in the Golden Burro, and for years later worked to keep improving the Boom Days event, which brought thousands of visitors to Leadville every year. You'll see Charlie Fry, second from the left, owner of the Golden Burro, in the background. It was in 1959 when the entire city rallied to eventually become winners in Look Magazine's contest to find the All-American City. It was typical of Leadvilleites to always look for and make the most of opportunities to promote our community and our amazing history. For example, you might remember the famous musical, The Unsinkable Molly Brown. Debbie Reynolds, as you know, starred as Margaret Brown, and Harvey Presnell starred as her husband, J.J. Brown. And Leadville jumped on it when that movie was released. It was another opportunity to promote Leadville's history. When the movie was released, Leadville had Metro-Goldwyn Mayer dedicate a plaque at the famous Little Johnny Mine here in Leadville, where Molly and her husband made their fortune, and succeeded in getting Debbie Reynolds to actually visit here. And of course, Leadville showed its hospitality to co-star Harvey Presnell. It was great publicity for Leadville, but residents knew the value of this whole event and knew it was an opportunity far more valuable than a one-time event, and they maximized it for years later. For example, a little logo was designed to bring attention to our famous mining heritage, and we used the name Molly from the movie The Unsinkable Molly Brown to mirror our famous Climax mine here, whose mining of molybdenum, fondly referred to us by locals as Molly, made a great tagline, and we had thousands of visitors following Molly to Leadville. And even in areas of economic development, there was a common understanding that one idea marries another, and each idea supports common efforts in harmony. We understood even back then the value of heritage tourism to economic development and promoted it in such a fashion. Here's something you won't see today. It's called marketing. And although Leadville's Follow Molly to Leadville was hugely successful in developing press coverage and tourist visitation here, its strength was incorporated into a huge 75-plus page economic development package. Comprehensive, to say the least. There was always something to do in Leadville, year-round. Unlike today's marketing strategies, which are confined primarily to the summer months when we have people visiting here anyway, back in the day, Leadville promoted year-round activities, like the snow sculpturing contest we showed you earlier, and such other year-round activities like dinner theaters, an annual winter and crystal carnival, a music festival, and so many others were designed to protect and preserve Leadville's amazing and nationally recognized history, like the Victorian Home Tour that used to be held every year up here. And like Oro City, which was a recreation of an early mining town. There have been just too many community events and activities to mention here. But in the past, Leadville always protected the theme of preserving and promoting its amazing history. This is what Leadville's identity was, and this is what Leadville was and wish we were still today. Let's take a look at what Leadville has evolved into today. From those magic days of past 50, 60 years ago, what's Leadville doing today with regards to its amazing heritage tourism? Several years ago, local government had a historic preservation professor from Colorado Mountain College give them a presentation about the value of heritage tourism, its ranking, Leadville's ranking nationally with regards to heritage tourism destinations, and the value that it would have to the city in both tourism revenues as well as economic development. Here are a couple of excerpts from that presentation.
So I really come at this from more of my interest in economic development, and historic preservation as a very effective tool for economic development. I would submit that the biggest asset you have in Leadville is your downtown. Of all the assets that you have, the downtown is going to be there in the top three. The downtown doesn't have to go away unless you allow it to get eroded and just kind of incrementally lose more and more of those historic assets. And the reason I say it's an asset is that it's your drawing card, and it is a way for you to diversify your economy, and it can be the core of your economy. As an observer, I can tell you that Leadville has more resources to be a leader in Colorado cultural heritage tourism community that I've seen in Colorado. Because between the historic buildings, the built environment, and the mining history, I mean, nobody has a more cultural history than Leadville. But there was a recent study done that just really kind of validated everything that all the studies before and the anecdotal evidence and so forth. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and 70% of the people who travel are looking for authentic places, if you will, with historic sites, historic buildings, compelling places, and those communities that are able to maintain their heritage, preserve it, protect it, make it a part of their future, are the ones that are going to do well in the 21st century.
So most folks that go to the voting booths to vote for people to represent them, keyword here, represent, are under the assumption that these officials that they elect will actually listen to them. After all, they are paying their salaries. These are taxpayers who care about their community and want local officials to understand their concerns. We now have what we call a new progressive Leadville. It's a new Leadville that's decided that they know it all and local taxpayers know little or nothing, and they don't need to be listened to. We will have obligatory meetings, we will have obligatory special hearings and this, that, and the other, knowing that no one's going to attend them anyway. And instead of reaching out to the local taxpayers, they just move along and do whatever they want to do, because after all, they know it all. Let's go back about a decade, 2011 to be exact, about 8 or 9 years ago, and let's follow the activities of the Leadville Assembly. Now, the Leadville Assembly was a nonprofit. It's a tiny little corporation. It was formed back in the 1950s by Carolyn Bancroft, who has national recognition as an author, and she was in love with Leadville, and she was a local historian, told a lot of stories, wrote a lot of books about Leadville. The Leadville Assembly at the time was formed specifically to protect and preserve the amazing history and heritage of Leadville. Well, Now, in 2011, almost a decade ago, the board of directors at the Leadville Assembly started to recognize that we were losing touch with our history, and we were starting to evolve into a whole different arena. And so we decided that we needed to do something to bring back attention to Leadville and its amazing history. We were told it couldn't be done, but we worked on it, and we were traveling down to the state legislature, talking to senators and House representatives, and guess what? We pulled it off. The Leadville Assembly was successful in getting the General Assembly to proclaim April and every April hereafter as Historic Leadville Month. What an amazing designation to have the state legislature actually specifically designate a city in Colorado with such a designation into one of the most lucrative industries in the nation. And what has Leadville done with that amazing marketing tool? Not one official website, the city website, the county website, the tourism fund panel, none of the websites in Leadville even recognize that amazing designation from the state legislature. A tag that could have promoted marketing into one of the most lucrative areas in the industry. There is one website that does feature the entire proclamation. For those of you who want to view what that proclamation says, it's www.leadville.org. That's the official website for the Leadville Assembly. Every 5 years after that designation occurred, the Golden Burro hosted some historic event. It featured, for example, the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. It featured an authentic dinner that was served on the Titanic. It featured the movie that was made about the sinking of the Titanic. We had a tour at the Guggenheim home. As you know, Guggenheim went down with the Titanic. All of these things. Not one local official nor the newspaper ever featured or participated in any of those events.
Little manners, please. I want to welcome you to this evening aboard a very special airship. This is the airship Magic City, and it's a wonderful machine because not only does it take us through space, but it takes us through time. And the basket of this machine holds all.
In years past, at least the mayor of Leadville would mirror the state proclamation, and every April would issue his own proclamation in recognition of Leadville's amazing history. Of course, this year our mayor, who's more concerned with barbecue events and bicycle races, didn't even make a proclamation this year. It was brought to his attention, and he still refused to make a local proclamation. So that kind of tells you where local government's head's at with regards to the amazing history Leadville has. Here is what Leadville stands for today. It's all about feel-good today legislation. Little concern for the experts' advice about heritage tourism and how Leadville has an amazing toolbox to promote itself into that lucrative industry. Instead, it's summer and it's races. Has no interest in listening to the almost 3,000 residents and taxpayers and what they feel the direction of Leadville ought to be in. Instead, we've got a government that is growing by leaps and bounds with committees and commissions and more bureaucracy than you could shake a stick at. Did you know that the payroll in Lake County government has doubled to over $8 million in just 2 years? You want to talk about government bureaucracy. We went back and we couldn't find but one edition of our local newspaper who covered any of the historic Leadville Month events. But if you look at the newspaper, look and see the direction they were going in with regards to coverage on races and where the claim to fame of Leadville's history really was. And we couldn't find much of anything with regards to Leadville's history except an obligatory weekly little article about it appeared in the newspaper 100 years ago. Where Leadville has gone is into fundraising and pay to play. In the old days, we used to have committees and organizations that felt strongly about promoting the local business community, who pays major amounts of taxes, which keeps the city running. Now we've got so many committees formed that we have to do fundraising, and we have to do pay to play. In other words, you don't get your business mentioned in any marketing strategies unless you're willing to pay for that opportunity. So let's take an example. We got involved in the Main Street project here. What is the Main Street project? Well, it started to sponsor a planter program, which would beautify the streets of Leadville. Key, if you want a planter in front of your business, pay for it. Sponsor one. The Leadville Main Street project, here's a typical promotion that we received, all the businesses received this email, just to give you an idea of what direction this great project is moving Leadville in. Many folks believe that a Chamber of Commerce is part of local government. It is not. It is a nonprofit membership organization, and it has been unable to sustain itself for many years because it can't sustain a membership, and so it is constantly going out trying to fundraise. In fact, it has received tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars from local government just to keep its doors open. Now it's decided that it's going to sponsor a barbecue event. And what this does is it shuts down the entire Harrison Avenue, our entire business district, from any traffic, brings in 30 or 40 barbecue events to compete with local restaurants, and all of this is a fundraiser for the Chamber of Commerce. Now, not all businesses, like the Golden Burro, are members of the Chamber of Commerce. So our tax dollars go to shut down our business district to the benefit of a private organization as a fundraiser. And I'm wondering when the last time local government gave a donation to the Golden Burro or any other business in the city of Leadville. And by the way, what do we hear from the Chamber of Commerce with regards to April History Month? When have we seen the Chamber of Commerce step up and help promote any historical activities to help promote our lucrative heritage tourist industry? When have we ever seen the Chamber of Commerce step up to the pump and speak out about losing our lucrative heritage tourist industry? How about never? We could go on and on about what's happening to progressive Leadville. We could tell you about the over $300,000 that have gone towards an economic development organization here in Lake County, and who has done what? Let's see, they've done a survey, they've run a couple articles in the newspaper, they sponsored painting murals on our historic Victorian buildings. But where's this $300,000 go? Well, you don't know, they won't release that information, but we do know that the directors make a nice hefty little salary with benefits. Lastly, I just want to point out that part of the problem with local government is they just don't listen. The races is a perfect example of what's happened when locals step forward to local government and try to speak to them about their concerns. The newspaper did a survey, for example, about the races, and most people either stay at home or leave town. They just don't want to be any part of these races. Nationwide, these multiple races that are inundating these cities all across the country have become newsworthy. And even on some of the own race websites, you see comments from some of the racers. We had a survey done, or a study done by Colorado Mountain College several years ago, and it claimed that the city of Leadville was a benefactor of $15 million or some ridiculous thing. An expert with a PhD ripped the survey apart, but local officials chose to ignore that and still claims that the races bring in all this revenue. You can see what some of the responses from some of the racers are, who actually think that the $15 million was kind of a joke. In fact, locals were so concerned and wanting so badly to speak out and let their local officials know what was going on that they put together sort of an informal petition. And they put it in a couple of businesses around town. They got over 300 signatures in support of this petition. And it wasn't a we hate the races, we hate bicyclists, we hate these people. It was simply to go to local government and say, you're killing us every weekend with something going on here. And our heritage tourism and the tourists that used to come up here, they don't want to be here for all that stuff. They want to have their day in the sun as well. The petition was totally ignored by local government. And by the way, what happens in Leadville if you're a concerned citizen, taxpayer, business owner, property owner, or whatever? What happens when you actually want to speak out against our progressive Leadville government? So what is Leadville today? Well, ironically, what used to be Leadville, what made Leadville famous for so many years, is in fact now history. And as one local race official once said in a public meeting, "The hell with our history, it's what's holding us back." By the way, we appreciate all your comments. The list of people watching this is growing. Feel free to drop us a note. In the meantime, check in with us a week from now and we'll have another brand new True Tales from the Golden Burro.